Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to ETF2L Season 38, Week 5, with our matchup of nerdRage versus Garda Panteri. I am Surny, joined by Wiethoofd on the production and Meer on the microphone. How's it going, bud?
Hey Surny, how's it going, man? We've got a bit of a B game today. Hopping over to the
Yeah.
Gremlin channel, TFTV2. But glad to be here anyway. We've got Garda Panteri versus nerdRage. It's the Week 5 matchup. One game already played this week for Week 5, and one going next week as well. Covering Week 4 on TFTV1. It should be a reasonably interesting game, I should think. Garda, full of Prem debutants, but they've looked reasonably comfortable, and they've taken a map off of Busker as well, who are a real sort of consistent top finishing team.
Top 5. They've also taken a map off of top 5. Not to be
Oh wow!
discrediting that, Yeah. That's like a much larger achievement in my opinion, because top 5 are looking like a really strong team this season. So
Yeah, certainly so.
I think they're certainly a team to be reckoned with. Let's run down these rosters really quickly. I'll start with nerdRage. We've got Seeds on the mid, Nasboy on the Demoman, Josh and Nubby on the soldiers, and then Morale, aka Kuno, whichever one you prefer, and Gazi on the Scooty Booty Men. And then on Garda, I'll let you do those.
We've got Killsis on the Pocket Scout. It's Earl on the flank. Bud is roaming. Manky Pocket. Milky is on the Demoman, and Medic is going to be Trum. So all their players, I believe, with the exception of Earl, it's all of their sort of first season in Prem. But as we touched on before, looking pretty comfortable by rights, but coming up against the Titans of nerdRage, who I believe have only dropped a map to top 5 thus far. It could be a bit of a task.
They've actually dropped the map to Faint.
Faint. Yeah. Apologies. Yeah.
I'm keeping tabs on these statistics as well, checking the pages as we speak. But yeah, they're obviously the most dominant team in Prem so far in the season, and we're more than halfway through, so they've pretty much cemented themselves on that top spot thus far, right? And they've had a lot of their hard matches behind themselves already. I mean, the only, I would argue, hard match they still have ahead of themselves might be against top 5 in the final week. So as far as the standings are concerned, nerdRage is pretty much stuck in the first place already, or at least at the top of the leaderboard, right? They're making playoffs guaranteed. So this is more interesting for Garda. If they can take a couple of points off of nerdRage here, this could have an insane implication for their standing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of the mid-table's really tight. You know, it's definitely a melee. I think the top 4 teams of this season are really not going to be the top 4 teams that you sort of would have predicted based on what we saw in the preseason qualifiers and what we've seen sort of in the early days. Some teams not quite performing as well as they should, and others just sort of being quite outstanding. And I think Garda has the potential to be one of them.
Yeah, Garda seems to be like this team that does the upsets as well, right? They've obviously taken maps off the bus crew off top 5. But like they seem to be this team that, they're the newcomers. Nobody really knows what to expect of them all that much. They're probably getting underestimated to an extent maybe, and they're still taking maps and they're still fighting hard and fighting well. And it's been working out decently for them so far. That being said, I think most people would expect this match to go pretty handily in the favor of nerdRage, depending on obviously how well they're playing today. But on an average day, you'd assume that nerdRage should take this one pretty easily, right?
Yeah, certainly so. Particularly with sort of the DM potential, just the number of Prem seasons they had. I think I looked in the preseason at how many sort of Prem seasons that nerdRage had cumulatively, and they've got 42 between them, including this one,
Lord.
compared to 7 on Garda, which is certainly impressive by rights. Josh on his own has played 15 seasons in Prem, making up more than a third. So that's pretty insane from him. But of course, last week, Garda did take points off the Busker, a significantly more experienced team, and I can imagine they're going to hope for a similar level of upset. Certainly, try and take advantage of the golden cap rule. If they score 2 rounds, of course, they do guarantee themselves at least 1 point from this map, and it is the first one we're rolling into here. So potentially hoping to catch nerdRage off guard, catch with their pants down, perhaps rely on a bit of disrespect on nerdRage's part, perhaps.
I mean, yeah, Product is the map that, it plays differently because it's the only King of the Hill map. And, everybody's, pretty used to playing it overall. It is the one that teams tend to either perform really well on compared to the other maps, or really poorly, because it's either the one that they focus on the gimmick map or they don't at all, right? It's always that dichotomy of whether or not they choose to pay much attention to a product at all. But it is the map where things can go drastically differently from what you would normally expect. And it could very well be that this is going to be, like this could go to one team and then for some reason, unexpectedly or expectedly, our second map of Snakewater is going to go to the other team, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those maps you either love or loathe. There's not much in between. It's either a stinker or it's one that you really hope to sort of claw your way through because it's just such a different break to the mold that you'd get on any other map. And of course, the only cloth map thrown in the pool. Exactly, it's really tight. So certainly sort of opens a lot of opportunities for surprises, etc. And of course, the big sniper map as well. I'm not sure if we're going to see out of either team today, but I can imagine somebody will have a bit of a flutter.
I mean, whenever Morale, I'm going to just call him that because that seems to be the alias he wants to be called by nowadays, is in a match. He's a notorious sniper. Whenever he is in a match, I'm always interested in whether or not we're actually going to see him snipe, because he's notorious for playing that class, and Product is a perfect opportunity to really flex those sniper muscles. But obviously, don't have to if you don't want to. At the end of the day, if your strategy works out perfectly fine, and we've, at least from the few matches I've seen of Product over the past few seasons even, it seems like it's become a little bit rare to see people sniping on this map for some reason. I can't really possibly imagine why. I guess it's just people wanting to stick to, what suits them better, because a sniper is a bit of a wild card, and if you're not having a great day, you're not hitting the shot. Sniper is it's an ebb and flow. Like sometimes you just have a great stride, you're hitting the shots you want to, and sometimes just simply don't.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree there, and certainly when you've got control at that point, once you've got the momentum in your hands, you really don't want to sort of break that mold. You don't want to change, and particularly if you're swapping, your scout onto sniper, you want somebody to fill that role, and soldiers necessarily not quite up to the task of filling in that scout role, as you see many teams doing here.
Yeah, that's the thing that we've seen in the past as well, where either a soldier player just straight up off classes to sniper or swaps around to scout, because the scouts are so much more powerful on this map. I mean, the soldiers obviously they can get some cheeky bombs and can get some distractions in, but if you have scouts looking at the sky, you can deny the soldiers so easily because the map is so tight and they can get those pretty decent meat shots in, because it's not like the soldiers can jump from very far or very high or anything like that. It's very easy to catch them out. So having scouts is invaluable on Product. Very, very important. So I can certainly see that they might not just want to even switch off of the scouts at all, or just not even bother with the sniper, unless you really need to desperately whip some ace out of your sleeve or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we all know pulling up that sniper, it's all about sort of increasing the survivability of both your medic and that sniper. So it's a bit of a must with those scouts. So again, it's yet to be seen. We'll have to have a look, see what the teams choose to run, see what they're feeling, see if they want to mix it up or keep it vanilla, keep rolling with the punches, roll with the momentum to see this map through, and hopefully we could see us ready up soon enough.
I mean, what I am interested in as well is what you think how this scoreline is going to go. Do you have any possible conception of what scoreline we could be looking at the end of this map in about 30 minutes time when we're done with it?
I believe that Garda Panteri can go monkey mode. I think they can net around at least here. I'm hoping so. I'm a big Bud enthusiast, I must admit. Of course, it's a bit of a mammoth task, as we touched on before, but we are actually live. Map 1 is Product. It is Season 38. It is Week 5. It's Garda Panteri versus nerdRage.
Let's see how these teams take it away on their first little fight for the point here. Obviously, early bombs in there by Josh, actually, and a lot of aggression out of nerdRage. They drop a few players and only will pick up Bud, get Milky dangerously low, and also just a lot of aggression onto their players, but not enough, and they dropped 2, including their own demo. Now, obviously, a bit of re-aggression coming out of Garda. They're gonna lose nobody due to that and actually pick up Nubby on the backlines as well. So it is working out very well for them. The scouts and nerdRage not quite being able to hold back that push there, and it looks like Garda are going to be the first to take the point for now.
Yeah, both medics surviving, of course, really important there, but it looked like Garda were not prepared to let any of nerdRage's players behind, because they know they brood on instability in the game and just shut them down excellently, convert that cap. But now we've got an equal Uber situation here.
And that is something that will usually lead to a little exchange on the point here. A little bit of cap time getting edged up by Gazi there. He's doing a decent job at getting that gun, but Nazboy, a little overextended, gets picked off before there's any sort of Uber even popped. Obviously putting Garda in a way better position to try and hold onto this point for even longer. And yeah, they're just making use of that, having a little bit more aggressive positioning here. nerdRage are going to have to be more passive, back up a little bit, just go for the spam until they can meet up with their demo again. Gazi's going to get picked up in the meantime, and they're just bleeding players again. They have a lot of cap time. Nubby gets cleaned up as well, so these scouts out of Garda doing a lot of great work at cleaning up the damage being dealt. And now, obviously, there's a lot of aggression onto their cliffside as well, as nerdRage is all bunched up. They do have the Uber, and they are probably willing to take it in here. They're not going to give this up just yet, but they will have to have a full team against a full team of Garda players that are just holding this point with an iron fist right now, not letting it go at all. There you go, nerdRage players moving forward a little bit again. Seeing if they can take a little bit of ground, just exchange that spam, get a little bit of early damage maybe to go off of, but for now, they're really being very careful here, very cautious. Everybody's very low. Seeds has to keep everybody healed up to get a bit of damage onto Mankey, and now Earl is also flying up high, but again, nobody's getting killed. A little bit more cap time edged out, but still, these teams are very cautious with this. Nobody wants to be the first to pop the Uber. Seeds even went dangerously low there. Nabi actually in onto the combo. Can he get the crucial kill? Unfortunately, he cannot, but in the meantime, players are being dropped left, right, and center, and still no Ubers popped until just now. Trump finally decides to save his last scout with the Uber, and is going to have to run away.
Yeah, Garda were really biding their time there. I think we saw over 2 minutes of action before a single Uber charge was popped. It looked like nerdRage was trying to bait Garda into popping the Uber just to bot that cap, but they sort of kept their finger at the pulse and it just shut down anyone that came into them. And now we are seeing the exchange come out. nerdRage as they charge forward. Nazboy so deep. Trump caught in the corner, does go down to Nubby. They call on over them. Garda crumbling as nerdRage seemingly setting up a forward hold here, but Mankey's not looking to give it up that easy.
He looks like he's changed his mind and he's just going to wait with his team. Potentially go for a little bit of a sack wave as nerdRage actually so far forward on their left side here. Josh literally inside the house. Just trying to make sure nobody can get through there. Nubby's going to meet Mankey and take care of him. And there's the Pyro out of Earl, so they're going to be trying to break this forward hold here as best they can. But jumps in, gets cleaned up by Nazboy though. And they've already dropped both of their soldiers now. I mean, Earl is on the Pyro, but he can only do so much. Gazi has slipped in behind, but doesn't get the kill he needs to. Kills gets taken care of, but however, ultimately, it's not going to be enough for Garda to push out. They lose Mankey again as well. So that sack wave has not worked. In the meanwhile, though, Trum is getting up on his Uber slowly but surely, so at the very least, they can try to use that to break the hold, but obviously Seeds has his own, so even if they exchange here, they would have to get a glorious post-Uber win. Otherwise, it's not going to be looking all that great for them if they want to retake the point. Looks like they're going to be pushing themselves up into middle here. Milky does pick up Nubby early, but Mankey gets taken down in the meantime. Bud is also slipped out, so it looks like Garda will be able to take a little bit of ground here. They do pick up Josh, who's just ever so slightly slow at getting out. And this might be the little bit of aggression that Garda needs here. A little bit of positioning, a little bit of spam being exchanged. A lot of nerdRage players on the point. They actually the first to pop. Obviously, Trump responds with his own Uber. Morale, a little juggled in the sky, gets saved by Seeds. And ultimately, nobody actually dies in that Uber. The Killsis is the first to die right after. Nice sticky by Nazboy, but that looks to be it for now. Just a little bit more exchange. No cap time really at all. Garda really have to try and make this point work. They're not doing a great job at it. They're not really killing people. I mean, as I say that, they pick up both soldiers, but lose Milky in the process, so they're still lacking a lot of damage now.
Yeah, and let's credit nerdRage. They did a really good job. That forward hold, they just managed to maintain the Uber, back up with all of their players, sans Josh. And then they've just taken the time down so much. They've had the cap for nearly 3 minutes on its own as Garda are coming in. Looks like nerdRage are going to concede it for now, but they're pretty close to Uber charge on both sides. So going to be a bit of a melee. nerdRage need to heal up before they can sort to move forward as they launch back out of the fight.
Yeah, they're going to be taking a little bit slowly. I mean, obviously Josh doing a little bit of prodding now. Nubby doing a little bit of prodding as well. Gets Earl on the flank here. Also, Gazi now picking up Mankey on that side. The Uber is popped out of Trum. Seeds in no danger whatsoever. Not even going to pop his Uber just yet. Maybe now to try and retake the point, and they're going to do that without even having to use at all. Finally, gets forced by Killsis effectively, but there's nobody really around. Bud is the only player in behind. Milky up on the cliffside, but he's all alone. And the first round is going to go the way of nerdRage.
Yeah, I mean, we saw two caps by each team in that map, I think is probably the most civil game of Product I've ever seen. They're just sort of exchanging spam, taking nice slow Uber trades, letting people away with things. Nobody's really going behind, and nerdRage ultimately just come out on top with that forward hold for 2 minutes there. So we are onto our second mid. nerdRage are a round up.
And let's see if this round is going to be a little bit more frantic than the last one, as the teams are obviously taking it careful with this early spam exchange, just, you know, seeking each other out, looking at the positioning, seeing what they can do. And then if there's a bit of good damage or a soldier bombing in, that could be the key that opens up this point. As it looks like Milky's actually very far forward compared to Nazboy here. At least for a while he was. But they're ultimately pretty much mirrored in both of their positions now, these teams. Bud is going to be the first one to jump in. Navi's going to respond, go deep behind on Cliff. He's going to get chased down by the scouts, but in the meantime, guys, he's picked up Mankey. So they effectively traded those soldiers. And that's that. Now Josh is going to jump in, maybe can get a little bit of a rocket onto somebody. Unfortunately, he only meets some scouts that are trying to evade him. Earl is actually even on the chase on that. Ultimately doesn't get that kill though, and Bud gets taken down again. In the meantime, as the Ubers are exchanged, Seeds with the far better one as he takes his team in. Nazboy is forward here trying to shut people out, and that's a pretty secure point after that better Uber.
Yeah, nerdRage on these mid fights quite consistently. They're forcing Garda to make a decision. They're playing the cap constantly. They're losing a player, just waiting for Garda to make a decision as to whether to go in or back out, who they're going to focus. And then that is where they're in their comfort zone, because they know exactly what to do, and they just shut them down every single time. And again, we're seeing them in a reasonably aggressive hold, but with players trading, it's going to be a bit rabbity. And ultimately, nerdRage coming out on top there as they recede back to point with their 35% Uber advantage.
Yeah, they get a nice hold as well. The sack wave out of Garda not quite working in their favor, so they're just going to take the whole team in. At least there's no forward hold to worry about just yet, but nerdRage obviously have mounted themselves up on some nice defensive positioning here, waiting for Garda to make a move. And Garda, well, they're not really taking any risk right now at all. They're going to get their soldiers healed up, see if they can maybe go for another sack wave here before Seeds has the opportunity to really make much use of the Uber. Mankey gets the knight out of his bomb. Milky gets taken down. There's Mankey as well, so neither of them have accomplished anything. Neither has Earl. We still have Bud in behind, but he's going to find the crucial targets he needs to. He's going to get taken down as well. Does some decent damage to Seeds, but doesn't quite get the final rocket off. So another sack wave that didn't quite go in their favor, but in the meantime, Crum has built his Uber, so we're going to see an exchange. Probably trying to get these guys out of the forward hold that they found themselves again.
Well, last time we saw Garda manage to raw dog their way out without using, but I can't imagine nerdRage going to let them get away with it this time as two players go down. Trump hasn't popped his Uber charge, but it's going to have to make them sort of rethink this one of how they're gonna breach this forward hold of nerdRage that was so successful for them before.
They're really aggressive as well in nerdRage. I really like to see that they're holding it so far forward that they're really not trying to let anybody slip past at all. I mean, saw both soldiers attempted just a second ago. Earl is back up on the pyro again here, trying to just get his team through ever so slightly. A little bit of right clicking, gets a nice reflect onto Navi as he's juggled onto the fence. So that's going to be the opening frag to allow Garda to get out here a little bit. And they're going to pick up Josh as well for their troubles. No Ubers exchanged yet, obviously. Seed's getting kind of low there, actually. He's going to have to be a bit careful. Going to have to go a bit more passive with his positioning. Bud is also on their chase, and he actually drops to a pipe by Milky. Beautifully done. Nice spam out of the man. That's going to be a crucial pick for them, as Garda now can use their Uber to secure this point as best they can. Clean up both scouts. Do lose Milky to it, but they do clean up both scouts eventually. Josh is the only player close right now on Cliff, and he's just going to spam a little bit as the rest of his team gets up again. That's why he's actually already in. He's being very aggressive. Okay, Josh is up forward as well. They're actually looking to contest this. They know they have slightly better Uber. They know they have slightly better spawns, so they can definitely contest this a little bit more quickly, and they're quickly going to take that point back as Garda give it up. That's actually a bad cap to just concede like that with only 30 seconds left on the clock for nerdRage. It's going to be crunch time for Garda.
Yeah, considering as well, not only the time disadvantage, but also the Uber disadvantage, so they've got to pull out something huge if they want to shut them down. It looks like it's in the form of a double soldier bomb. Mankey goes down. There's a good bit of damage about, but no price converted as Nubby tries to get the funny spoon, ultimately does convert onto Bud. And Garda just going to have to stand on this point. They need to do something. They've got one player advantage. nerdRage sort of resign themselves to this slope with Uber up. I can't imagine it'll be too long with their spawners now rolling out.
They're gonna definitely try to do this. I mean, obviously, Garda trying to be very aggressive here to just push these nerdRage players back as far as they can. They have to, you know, save themselves every single second they can here, because if they let nerdRage cap that point again, that could be bad for them. Josh is already deep onto the combo, does unfortunately not hit the rocks he needs to, and that's the Uber out of Trum as they pick up Nazboy as well. And Gazi, as the Uber has faded, Boot picks him up from behind, and, well, Nubby tries to be cheeky, unfortunately doesn't quite get to do that either, so Garda holding the point for now, but now Seeds still has his Uber, he hasn't used it at all, so they're gonna have an easy chance here to actually try and recontest this, but in a little bit of a cheeky spot as well, I can tell. And let's see how nerdRage approaches as the Uber comes out. They will have to just vacuum out all of these Garda players as best they can, sweep them up. Nubby again shut down by Milky. He's got his number right now, but this is going to be the only player to fall, as nerdRage have just capped up the point. They lose 3, including Seeds, so no heals. Gazi is still hiding behind the sign. Kilsa seems to have found him together with Earl. They're going to take him down easily. And Garda hang on to the point, even though they lost 4 whole seconds off the timer of nerdRage there.
Yeah, nerdRage got so infatuated with Bud and Mankey, it just opened up such an excellent opportunity for Milky. I believe he converted 4 frags in that fight, which is pretty huge, but nerdRage being in overtime, they know they can just tease this cap and force Garda into using this Uber charge, as they are on a 70% advantage.
That's going to be very crucial how Garda plays their Uber ads here, because if they don't play it right, this could very well still... They have a lot of time to burn, so this could very well go in the way of nerdRage. They're going to use it, and Josh also picks up Milky on the backlines. That's not good if you're trying to hold the point. I mean, sure, nerdRage are down both soldiers and also Gazi now. At the end of the day, they still have a lot of time to work with. Is it going to get collapsed on? Looks like they can hold their own on Cliff ever so slightly. And they're gonna recollect themselves. Seed's getting up close to his Uber now as well, and they're just edging out that cap time. Garda are basically forced to try and get them off it again. They're gonna be forced to walk onto it, and that is the Uber coming out to clean up those frags that have already been dealt so much damage to. Milky being the first one to fall. A little bit of blocking coming out, but it is simply not enough against Uber charged players as nerdRage goes up 2-0.
Yeah, Garda showed really good discipline there, as they didn't sort of go balls to the wall on nerdRage as they sort of backed down that cliff area, but it might have been their undoing, as it just allowed Seas to come up with his Uber advantage, and they just converted those frags, played the point, and then it was all over for them. So nerdRage now 2 rounds up.
And it could be the final one that we're looking at right now if they keep up the momentum. Early pick onto Nazboy as he's a little too aggressive. Gets picked up by some spam by Bud. That could be a very big opening for Garda here. Obviously, nerdRage are going to send in their soldiers. Josh gets picked up immediately, as does Nubby. So 3 players down for nerdRage. They have opted that they should probably just wait in spawn. And Garda are going to be taking the point. Well, you say that, they actually haven't even chosen to cap yet. I think they've just now realized that they should probably leave a scout to do that as they're mounting their forward hold on the right side here. Gazi's already up on the pyro, anticipating that to happen. And the meme spoon comes out of Nubby. He picks up Kilsis. Well, at least they've picked up the point, but now they're down 2 players, and nerdRage are here with a vengeance. They've obviously got Ubers on both sides as well, and there's a deep jump by Nubby behind, so he's going to be causing a little bit of havoc as the Uber exchange happens. And they're going to pick up Josh, who's just on the sidelines a little bit there. Mackey's going to get cleaned up by Morale, though. And we have Nubby causing a little bit of havoc behind. He gets into the combo as well. Some nice coordination with Nazboy there. Picks up 2 players among the both of them, and they're going to secure that point.
Yeah, time ticking down in nerdRage's favor now. Of course, don't quite manage to convert enough frags onto Garda to warrant a forward hold, but what they are doing is just crushing anyone that dares cross out of their spawn line. So Mankey going down there, certainly going to slow them down a little bit more. nerdRage on a 50% advantage, and they've applied enough pressure to force Garda back into their spawn. We saw nerdRage when they were being forward held by Garda, they just managed to just unsprung it so quickly. I can imagine Garda not been so successful, and they're going to try and replicate that success with Earl on the pyro. Just goes straight into Josh. Bud has been sort of sent behind, so they're going to apply a bit of pressure to these soldiers.
They're gonna actually lose both of them. They do pick up Josh, but the Uber comes out of Seeds now as well, so they lose Earl. And barely just escape with, you know, the last remaining players. Obviously, Trump didn't have any part in that at all. He's gonna have his own Uber now. very, very soon. So at the very least, they're going to be able to get out of their spawn.
Gazy.
Oh yeah.
He's on the medic. He gets the
no.
force. It was so free. He gets gobbled up by 2 scouts, but his job was very much done there as Garda's Uber completely wasted. It is going to be a 6 versus 5, and they're going to have to do something here. Nubby very weak as well, taken out of the fight, and Josh just causing a bit of havoc.
He's gonna get into a 1v1 with Mankey there on the backlines, and he's gonna actually win it. So he's still gonna be causing a little bit of a distraction here for Garda, who still haven't capped up the point. And now with Nubby there on the side as well of Concrete here, it's causing a bit more distraction. Gazi coming back onto the point as well. Lots of damage onto Earl there, but they're gonna lose Gazi. So ultimately, Josh still in behind. He finally gets cleaned up. My man was back there for a whole minute, it feels. Finally, Garda convert the point in their favor, have the time ticking down again. They certainly need to burn a little bit of time off this timer, so killing morale there as well, and trying to go for a bit of a forward hold. Losing Earl, though, to a little bit of a trap by Nazboy isn't going to allow them to do that, so they're already losing momentum again, and with the Ubers up on both sides and the faster spawn out of nerdRage, with morale meeting up back with his team already as well, it looks like they're going to have a hard time trying to hold this on the side of Garda. Josh and Nubby both in again. Nubby already onto Trum. Josh causing a bit of a distraction behind as well. There's soldiers just all over the place right now. Even if they get cleaned up, they've caused so much havoc that it's enough for nerdRage to almost edge out the cap entirely without the Ubers being chained. And Nubby gets the drop he's been looking for this entire time. You love to see it.
Nubby, Trum Destroyer drops the easy in chat. He's got it. Mission accomplished, and nerdRage do have the full advantage here as they're mounting a push on Cliff. The cap's so close, and more Alexi just looking to convert that independently, but the bomb's in. Just one rocket converted onto Seeds, and just the scouts running amok. nerdRage not allowing Garda to get anywhere near Seeds.
They're not letting that man get in any form of danger whatsoever. He's going to be on the top here, healing up his team, making sure that they can get this forward hold down once again. And Garda find themselves in a very familiar situation that they've been in approximately 5 times before on this map. As they have the Pyro trying to push out the left side. Obviously the Uber is popped off as they try to hold it, and they're actually just going to chase this all the way back into spawn. They only really pick up Nubby though. Trum, I mean. My man, you know what? They got what they needed. Yeah, they lost 4 players, but they got Trum at the end of the day, so even if they lose Seeds as well, they've equalized it, and at the very least, made it a lot harder for Garda to try and hang on to this as the...
Nubby tries to sync up some rockets from behind and catch Trum as he comes out of main as the remaining player from nerdRage. Doesn't quite manage it this time, but he's just so slippery. Every single time he manages to get out, as I say, falls victim to gravity. It comes crashing down on the blue side of the map. But of course, nerdRage not controlling the point does mean they have the slightly faster spawn as they're just sort of recuperating, gaining themselves, catching out Earl on the flank. Good coordination between Josh and Gazi there. So definitely gonna have to see a bit of action from nerdRage soon enough.
What a dangerous bomb that is. And speaking of danger, Josh is already in behind again on Garda's Japan here. They do pick up Nubby, but trade him for Mankey effectively. And with Gazi and Josh both behind onto the medic, that's Trum taken care of immediately. Milky also taken out by the spam from Nazboy, but cleaned up on the point. It's only the scout left for Garda here, and they're doing a bit of damage, but ultimately they can't possibly take down all of these players. They do pick up Nazboy, but that's going to be it, and nerdRage are going to convert the point again. Well, maybe as soon as their spawners are up. They don't want... Well, they decided that they're going to let Nazboy be in respawn hell for a little bit longer. They're not going to need him all that much, considering they have 5 seconds left on their time, and Garda are going to be forced to get onto this point as best they can, but tries his best, unfortunately can't get close, and that's going to be a quick 3-0 for nerdRage on product.
Yeah, unfortunate, but not too big of a surprise for anyone. Really unfortunate for Garda. They played well, but they just weren't able to shut down the players behind them. I mean, there's no harder player to kill in Prem, I'd argue, when they're behind than Nubby. He's just such a little rat. He's a little goblin, just crawling on over the place. And Garda, in spite of how many players they sent back, never managed to convert it. And then likewise, when Garda tried to do it back to nerdRage, they just felt the wrath of more Alexi and Gazi every single time. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't really fancy going into those guys.
Yeah, it probably doesn't strike me as a very fun experience to go up against when you're trying to be a cheeky flanking soldier. Ultimately, yeah, it was really like the dangerous bombs and like every single time I even saw any form of push, both nerdRage soldiers just immediately jumping behind, causing a little bit of havoc, causing distractions, dealing damage from angles where, nobody's really looking. They just slip right past the scouts, and it works out every single time. Let's look at some of the logs, look at some of these numbers, and, quantify how much of a role this really was.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark picture, unfortunately. I mean, we saw like how slow that game was for Product, really. There was just so many forward holds. The fights on point were drawn out like extensively. And between the two medics, they only died 9 times, so 6 deaths on Trum, just 3 on Seeds, which is pretty huge. But we can just see sort of how poor of a time Garda's soldiers had there. I can't really blame them. Picking up 19 deaths each and just 11 frags between the two of them, which is really unfortunate for them because they were doing a lot. They seemed to sort of create an ample distraction when they were capping the point, but ultimately it wasn't enough, and nerdRage just shut them down.
Yeah, like they were really trying to create space. You saw it a lot, but ultimately those scouts on Gazi and Morale just completely shutting them down, and you can see how they've been feasting. I mean, obviously Earl's been feasting as well, and Killsis isn't too far behind. So again, it shows, Product is a very scout-centric, scout-heavy map. So there's not much of a surprise in there, and both demos also playing pretty well given the circumstances, right? They were clearly not the stars of the show on this map, but they were still playing very solidly, doing a lot of damage for their scouts to follow up on at the end of the day. And yeah, like ultimately, even though it's a 3-0, I mean the Ubers were pretty equal, and yeah, it was a bit of a forward hold. Let's look at the med stats as I mentioned Ubers. Let's see how these medics were actually doing in their more detailed statistics here. And I mean, obviously, Seeds got an extra Uber. They both dropped once, and they both healed about the same amount. So at the end of the day, they played pretty equally, even though one of them died twice as much. But yeah.
I mean, looking at those, you wouldn't think you would have thought it was a much closer game based on those stats alone. Trum's survivability was pretty good, but the ability of more Alexi and Gazi just to huddle around Seeds ultimately just came good, and it just sort of turned the tide for them there. Just increasing the survivability by 2 times, as we saw with 3 to 6 deaths.
So it has worked out well for them. That being said, obviously a Product is a wash if you're Garda here. But Snakewater could be a whole different story. You never know. It could be entirely different as we're headed into our second map. How do you think this is going to pan out? How do you think this is going to go any differently, or do you think it's going to be even worse of a role? Do you think nerdRage are just going to continue snowballing it forward?
I mean, I've got to eat my words a little bit. I said Garda would take at least a round on Product. Obviously, they didn't. It got pretty close. I think they got down to 12 seconds cap time at best. 5 CP, nerdRage, I think, once they get a couple rounds up, they're in their comfort state and they're just able to keep it rolling. So if Garda can sort of catch an early round, create some instability in the game, I think potentially, we could see a bit of a match. But if nerdRage get the momentum nice and early, sort of picking up a couple rounds in 5-10 minutes, it could be a pretty quick one for them.
Yeah, I do agree that if they keep their momentum rolling forward now, and if they just pick up some early rounds, or even if they have a long drawn out one, as long as they pick up the first one, I think that could just be all they need. And if you're Garda, if you maybe already maybe, I obviously don't know, but potentially playing on a little bit of a tilt now, and all that stuff that goes into it as well. If you're not going to stunt that momentum early on, I think you're just going to get overwhelmed eventually, right? Eventually, it's going to get out of your hands completely, and you're not going to have any control over the game anymore whatsoever. So if they don't find themselves early enough, let's say in the first half of this map, it could very well spell doom for Garda here if they want to take home any form of points tonight.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, especially when you're down, keeping a cool head is really, really important. And nerdRage have been in the position so many times before. They're all veterans, as we know. So Garda coming into this and don't have that level of experience, but I can imagine if they can even get around, if they can win a mid, if they can just do anything to instill some instability within nerdRage, I think they're going to be pretty chuffed with that. And they put in a really solid shift on Product, all things considered, considering how comfortable nerdRage looked there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be down to almost the mental warfare. I mean, we already see, the warfare, the rivalry between Navi and Trum. So we'll have to see how much that continues, how many more funny meme spoons we may see, or if Garda can actually, stabilize a little bit, get back on their feet, and completely put product behind themselves, treat this map differently, see how much they can do differently on Snakewater. I am hoping that they're going to pick up at least a round, at the very, very least. And who knows, maybe they can even take it to, well, a single point would already do them favors here, at the end of the day, any point they can take off of the top team is basically a free point for them. So
yeah, certainly. I've got it right now as well. They're sat on 6 points, so to pick up one today would allow them with a couple more victories, allow them to sort of propel themselves away from other teams in the top 4. So we are seeing both teams ready up now. It is map 2. We just did see a 3-0 victory for nerdRage on Product, so they've netted themselves a minimum of 3 points from this official. It's now Snakewater. It's nerdRage versus Garda Panteri. And who are we seeing on this rollout, Surny?
Looks like Nazboy is going to be the one I'm watching, but Mankey's actually in pretty quickly into the enemy's kitchen here, so actually he's going to get called out, but he is going to be behind, and nerdRage are going to have to be aware of him as they send in Nubby onto the combo, who immediately picks up Trum. So they trade Mankey in for seeds as well, though, so both medics down on both teams, and a lot of frags falling in favor of Garda. Nazboy is the only player really left in. Morale stuck in Saw here, maybe able to catch out Killsys at the best, and he's gonna be able to do that. Might even get Earl. He's actually hit quite a lot of damage on him. Ultimately doesn't manage to, but the first mid is actually gonna go the way of Garda as they cap it out. And well, Nubby is actually looking to maybe contest it a little bit. He's being very aggressive right now. Does get, that almost got the spoon onto Earl as well. Does get ultimately the rocket onto him, so Milky is going to be forced to potentially cap out the point here as the rest of nerdRage come in to pick up this man as well, who is all alone. Garda now, well, somehow they've both simultaneously won and lost the mid.
I think it's pretty impressive. I think they sent Mankey behind just to be a bit of a menace, and nerdRage didn't want to allow him to get away with anything. They just insta-commit onto point and just get completely crushed. So a pretty solid mid from Garda, but then Nubby bombing in really fast, just completely swung it the other way as we do see the second fight going on. Reasonably equal Ubers, but Trum and Bud's so weak here. Garda are going to have to give this up if this onslaught or spam continues from nerdRage.
It looks like they're actually trying to heal players back up here again, and nerdRage getting pressured out ever so slightly, but Bud is so dangerously low, he does get cleaned up, so that's going to be the first player to fall here, as Mankey was already dead. Killsys taken down as well, as is Milky. Only Earl is left in. Trum is already running for his life, and he does live, as does Earl. But they're already on last. nerdRage is already coming in onto the point. There's already almost the entire point capped out before the Ubers are exchanged, and it's not looking all that good for Garda. They do have a few respawns, but nerdRage also has a few reinforcements now coming into the push. They do lose Nubby. Garda, they really have to pick up more frags here, and they do fall a bit in their favor. Nazba picks up Mankey though, and they also clean him up below, so they've taken care of that, and they just barely hang on to this last as Josh meets up with Seeds, who has miraculously escaped, but that's what Seeds does, so it's not a surprise to me.
Yeah, nerdRage, it looked like they just wanted to play that really fast, but Garda, they got their soldier spawners up, they just played the high ground and managed to hold it. So bomb does come in from Josh, tries to get in on Milky, but ultimately no cigar, and both Bud and Earl shut down on point, so their cap attempts have been thwarted, and late death from Mankey does mean Garda are going to be back on last, but Trum goes as well.
You hate to see it. It's just caught out in cheese, and ultimately nerdRage just have their number. They couldn't even cap out second. Milky's the only player on last for a moment there. Gazzy's gonna be the one to kill him and cap out the point with his scout buddy. And that's gonna be the quick first round, the prophesized quick first round, going the way of nerdRage.
Yeah, it just seemed like nerdRage were just so comfortable in all those fights, particularly on second. They were quite happy to just stand back, trust Seeds to distribute heals better than Trum, trust their focus fire, and then it just made the follow-up so easy, and Bud and Mankey going down there, they just did not—
Oh my god!
I
was gonna let you finish, but I see him rolling out so quickly, and then he actually gets the spoon onto Milky. You hate to see it. If you're Garda, yeah, they're already on second. They're not even gonna try to contest that mid anymore. That is devastating. Oh my lord. Just single-handedly, the one kill was all they needed to win that mid, and they're gonna actually pick up Bud as well with it again. Killsis is gonna get a kill onto Gazi, but is it gonna be enough to fort this push? It does not look like it will be. They lose Earl in the meantime as well, so nerdRage, again, they're taking it slow, they're taking it steadily. Josh is already in behind, Nubby jumps in as well, almost gets onto Trump. Ultimately, escapes with his life again though, and Josh is still in behind, wins the duel against Mankey. Probably gonna get, okay, gets killed by Killsis. Nubby is still in as well, so much aggression, he does force off Trump, and actually drops seeds! Okay. Alright.
A bit of a chaotic one. It looked like Nubby was just unkillable there. Just bouncing about, funny spooning people, but Nazboy's in behind. He wants revenge on Trum. He's in, does manage to get him, ultimately going down to Milky, but is to be expected. So the only player up right now from nerdRage is going to be Josh. He's waiting for his spawners and hoping to get mid in some capacity. With both their scouts down there, it might be a bit of a feat.
Nubby again, he's trying, he's always trying, always going in for those deep bombs. Ultimately cannot get the meme spoon this time around, and he's gonna get cleaned up by Milky. But the rest of nerdRage are here, the brigade has arrived, they kill an overextended Bud, and a lot of aggression into Saw as well, as Gazi actually just runs W's forward with that full buff, doing a lot of damage, pushing back these remaining Garda players back to second, so Garda has no chance of taking mid there, and with the Ubers reasonably equal. Seeds with only a slight advantage, really. That's ultimately probably not going to mean all that much. We might see a little bit of a stalemate develop here, depending on how these teams choose to play it.
Yeah, certainly so. As we've seen before, nerdRage sort of brewed in instability, and when they get Nubby behind, when they get Nubby in, it just always seems to swing their way. And as we say, both soldiers from nerdRage do commit up and do huge damage to Garda. They've had to recede back into lobby, leaving Earl out on his own. It's fragged by Nazboy, and they're going to have to back up to last, and Bug being picked off late as well. It really does not bode well for them.
It's just as you were saying, you know, it could slow down. You see both soldiers just jumping into Cheese, pretty much uncontested, cleaning up and cleaning a lot of space, and yeah, that's going to just roll it forward. Garda didn't even really have a chance to, like, a time there to respond as nerdRage picks up their second round.
Yeah, as we've seen, both nerdRage's successful last caps, they haven't even been like fights, they've just been wipes. Momentum in lobby, so many frags converted that it's basically a walk-in, so I can imagine they're going to look to replicate that again, and we've got a very fast mid coming out from the soldiers again.
Mankey trying to do what Nubby has done the previous round, trying to get onto Nazboy, ultimately actually overshoots the target a little bit, so unfortunately this looks like another mid that might very well fall in the favor of nerdRage, as Nubby is already in behind. They do clean up Josh, but Nubby is still alive and still almost got that as well. He almost got away with it. I would have been mighty upset if he actually managed to. Turns out he does not, and you know, nerdRage win the mid, but they do lose both soldiers for it. Gazi's actually going to pick up Bud up top, and he's getting onto the medic as well. Does clean up Trum, so that's going to be a huge pick for him there. Because now obviously nerdRage are going to have to try to keep Seeds as safe as they can. Everybody trying to collapse onto him, but they just can't quite do it. Earl's going to get picked up, as does Killsis. There's a high bomb out of the soldiers, but it's not enough. Mankey gets cleaned up as well. Milky's the only one alive, and he's caught in so deep. He actually gets Nubby. That's all he can do.
Yeah, in that fight, Nazboy just chunked so many players. He managed to stick the scouts as they came in, and just opened up so many opportunities for his players to follow up, and just really swung that for them, and they've managed to roll their momentum all the way into last. They're in this left side. Second is near capped, and Garda are scrambling to get some defenders there, but with Milky still down, it's going to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, they've already popped this Uber into last from nerdRage. Trum is dead as well, so no heals for these remaining Garda players. There are 3 of them, and they picked up 2 kills at least. But Gazi's just going to slip onto the point with pretty much nobody contesting. I mean, they actually do kill him, but there's still a Nubby, and he's going to be able to not win it. All right? I eat my words. Earl is going to be able to hold on to it ever so slightly. Obviously, Seeds, you know, it's what he does. He lives. So he got out of there way early on, left his team to die, and Garda will actually be able to stabilize on their second here. Barely retake it as the aggression from nerdRage already comes back in as well. God, these guys are so aggressive.
I mean, there was certainly potential for Seeds to heal up Nubby and convert that fight the other way, but ultimately it's all about risk management. And Seeds is excellent at that. He knows exactly when to back out. He knows when his cards are spent. And now they're sat on a pretty minor Uber advantage, but what they have done is not allowed Garda to get set up, as Nubby just does a bit of a ring around. The sentry cannot last.
just jumps behind Kilsis, who is woefully unaware or just, you know, beggingly building up his sentry gun and decides to just jump back out. Now he tries the same thing again, gets onto the spawn door and ultimately just dies, but there's enough damage onto Trump for morale to clean up as the Uber comes in as well, and they've already killed 2 people. Milky is dead as well, so there's going to be no stickies on the point. nerdRage just have to recollect themselves here as they do lose seeds. They have still got a chance to try and convert this round. It's going to be a battle of attrition, and usually that favors the defending team. They do trade Bud for Josh. And as Spoy and Morale both still in, they decide to finally back out into lobby and just give up on this last push for the time being, as Garda barely stabilizes and Nubby is up on the spy.
Yeah, it was really solid of Garda to hold that, really. I think Trum might have died on sort of 85% right at the start of that Uber charge, so the fact that the remaining 5 players managed to convert that, in spite of the fact their gun was not fully built up, is pretty solid for them. And as you say, we have got the spy man out of nerdRage in Nubby. Whether this is an attempt to sort of a fake out and go for a back cap, or whether this is an attempt to get in on Trum, is yet to be seen, but I can imagine he's going to unhinge, spring into action soon enough, as Seed's very close to Uber charge.
Yeah, they're actually going to take the Uber in as well to take care of that sentry, and they're going to just completely collapse onto Garda. Unbelievable. All right.
Yeah, if he gets to back someone to Bud and he spy crabs him. Yeah,
ultimately didn't even really need that spy, huh? They got 1 kill out of him, but it wasn't really all that necessary, huh? Just the spy crab to taunt him, and that's all she wrote. 3rd round for nerdRage, and it's certainly looking like this might be a 15-minute match.
Yeah, I'd argue an aura of disrespect surrounding Nubby throughout this match with the number of bloody spoons we've seen thus far, but he's so far behind already.
Yeah, as is Mankey on the other side though, so we're seeing ourselves in a mirrored situation here again. Trump, it's just completely destroyed by both soldiers there. Again, Milky and Earl taken down as well in the meantime, as is Kilsis. It's only the soldiers left for Garda here. Mankey in a little bit of a cheeky position, and I mean, Bud is in behind as well, but they're both so low. Morale's going to pick up the first of them, and Bud, I mean, he is in behind, but everybody's aware of him. They're going to hear him coming, they're going to see him coming, and ultimately he's not going to be able to accomplish all that much.
Oh,
wait.
They have spotted him out. He was hiding on top of the boxes, but Trum knows what he's about, does wait, and very diligently spots him out. Doesn't let him get away with anything, but you just see the difference with what the soldiers can get away with on these mid fights. Like nerdRage, they're getting in behind, they're converting frags, and they're just not taking damage. Garda, Mankey and Bud, they're just left out on their own, just so weak behind it, and they just get converted on so easily.
Yeah. That being said, we already have an Uber obviously coming out of nerdRage here, taking it into last again, but they haven't converted any kills yet. They're trying to keep people in spawn here, and I mean, there's already a lot of cap time, so yeah, keeping people in spawn was enough for that push as they convert the 4th round very quickly. We could already be onto our match point here with still 17 minutes left on the clock, so looking like a quick one as we're headed into our 5th and potentially final mid-battle of Snakewater for the night.
Yeah, we touched on before how well nerdRage do when the momentum is in their hands, and particularly on these mid-fights, they've just been managed to swing so many points off the back of very little, so I can imagine to replicate that again today.
Yeah, I mean, again, Nubby's already in so deep behind. Josh jumps in as well to try and create a little bit of a distraction, but I actually collapse a lot of players. Nubby does get Trump, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day, because he got the cool medic frag, and he lived for way too long. Gazzy, the only player alive out of nerdRage, so Garda have won a mid, but they have lost the medic, and they're actually going to have a little bit of a dis-ad headed into 2nd here. Mankey's already in deep, but how much can he do against a team of respawners? Gazzy is obviously trying to contest him here, trying to fight him as best he can. The rest of Garda, just nowhere to be seen. They're taking their sweet time.
Yeah, we know that Garda can't really afford to take too many risks here, because they know sort of how good nerdRage are converting multiple points off the back of very little.
Oh no.
And Nubby is already going behind. He's invoking that chaos we touched on before, and he's just straight in on Trum. Tries to get the money spoon again, but gets countered by Mankey.
You can't get away with it every time. Mankey's gonna have a word with that, and he's gonna counter that meme spoon. Ultimately, though, they're still left in such disarray, such chaos, that they still have to back out. They do have Trum on the crits creek. It looks like that might be what they're gonna try to play off of here as the crits come out. Seeds sees it way too soon, pops that Uber, and ultimately the crits are absolutely neutralized.
Mankey's in.
But it was a worthwhile attempt, and we do have Mikey barely trying to make something happen. Gets gunned down. And man, it's not going to work out for them, is it?
Yeah, Garda going in a bit of salvage mode. It seems like they're just sort of throwing players in the fallout of fights and just hoping for the best. But with so many numbers down, nerdRage nearly on the cap already. Bit of a scramble and the double for me.
What a play by Josh. No. Beautiful air shot onto Milky, followed up by 2 Minecraft kills on the point. And that's a way to round out the match, is it not? Wow.
Yeah, nerdRage. I think they might have had a bit of fun with that one.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to name any names. Not going to name any names, but I think people might have run amok there.
Is it even worth looking at the numbers for this?
I mean, there were some numbers that went on. One team had more numbers than the other in various different places. So I'm sure we can extrapolate something from it.
There's always something to look at, I suppose. Obviously, you can see one team being a little dominant over the other here, ultimately. You know, like twice the Ubers, Trum dying almost 3 times as much as Seeds. You know, just the usual stuff, really. It's, yeah, it's quite a massacre.
Yeah, I mean, you can see, I mean, the logs were very, very telling of the game we just saw, but ultimately, they were nerdRage. Once they got comfortable, Navi was just being a pain in the ass. He was jumping behind. He was just being a nuisance. He was trolling, really. Yeah. And he was really relying quite heavily on Gazzy and more Alexi just to stick with Seeds, just dying, 5 and 8 times respectively, and just completely turned it around for them. Well, not turned it around, but kept it piling forward with them.
Mm-hmm. And it's worked out for them in the end. So yeah, nerdRage are going to be taking home their Week 5 match versus Garda. 6 whole points for them, 0 for Garda, obviously. And that's really all there is to say about it in regards to the match, because it was a quick one. Yeah, so we're just going to shoot it over to TFT1, because that game's probably going a little bit longer. We'll see you there.
Cheers, gang.